Hi, my name is Rita Edwards. I've been attending Brook Lane Community Church for about 12 years and became a member in 2017. I've been involved in the disabilities ministry with Curtis and Carol Hoke, as well as with Dawn Kimball with the children's ministry, of which I've been a product of many years ago. I'm also a respiratory therapist, and I want to begin to say I thank you so much for your prayers for me and others who work in this situation. It's been kind of tough. And I also want to say I miss the congregation. I miss being with the church family. I've been at Paoli Hospital for many years, and initially my career was in the critical care area. And then in 2002, I went into outpatient diagnostics and rehab and pulmonary function testing, and more recently running the lung cancer screening program. And then when COVID hit, all of that shut down, so we had to be reassigned. So my first duty was to train the staff for the PAPR system, the Power and Supplied Air Respiratory System, otherwise commonly known as the Ebola suits. I had to train the staff to don them on and doff them off. Once that was over, then my other assignment was to go back into the intensive care unit, which I hadn't seen for about 18 years. My fear was not initially for the virus as much as going back into that world where, as you know, technology changes over 18 years. However, it wasn't so bad. The environment was fatiguing mentally for me. Seeing all those people who were so sick. Initially, the virus it does target the respiratory system, and many recover at home or in the hospital without having to be put on any life support. But the small amount that it hit hard, they would come into the emergency room and they're very short of breath. The virus attacks the lungs where the lungs cannot process oxygen. And so when they come in, their oxygen levels are really low, and we tried various types of oxygen modalities, and when that doesn't work, we have to intubate them and put them on ventilators. And then they go up to the ICU. And the sheer amount was just outstanding. It seems like, we have 2 ICUs, and a lot of them had ventilators on them. Not all COVID, but most of them were COVID. And with this situation, with the isolation, you had the isolation carts all lined up outside the hallway, as well as IV pumps. They put the IV pumps outside so that nurses don't have to go into the room to change the IV bags or change the amount of medicine the patient is getting. And then from that, you have long IV tubing that goes from the outside of the room to the inside of the room. And as a respiratory therapist, I have to go inside the room to check the ventilator and to manage the airway. And so you had to be careful not to trip over those tubings. And the PPE they give you is very efficient. To go into a COVID room, you have an N95, you have eye goggles, and then you have a face shield, you have a bonnet, and you have a gown, and of course you have gloves. And there's a certain way you have to put them on and a certain way you take them off. And I appreciate the masks that were made and all the bonnets that were made, very much appreciated. And the staff appreciated them too. And still appreciate them as it's still going on. It's a kind of a steady flow. It's not surging yet, so we'll see where this goes. We have to carry around a brown paper bag with our name on it and a date every day because we have 3 masks to wear. We have the N95, and then we have the surgical mask that we wear in other clinical areas, and then we have the cloth mask that we wear in non-clinical areas such as the cafeteria or any office hallway. So a lot of procedural changes. However, we adapt. So opportunities that I've had is working with the staff I haven't worked with in a long time, or if ever, because I've been away from it for so long. So to be able to help them and to try to be encouragement to them and to be a servant to them and to show them Christ the best I can has been a blessing. When the patients get really sick, and they need to be intubated and they be put on the ventilator, then sometimes the oxygenation is maxed out, and then we have to prone them. We have to have a team into the room, and we have to flip the patient from their back to their belly. And sometimes that does help by recruiting the alveoli that's in back of their lungs. It's very tough sometimes trying to oxygenate them. And if that doesn't work and we max out everything, sometimes we have to transfer them to another hospital where they get ECMO, the extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, where the blood is taken out of the body and oxygenated and then pumped back into the body. And a lot of times that works, as well as the medication that they've been giving, the hydrochloroquine. The other challenging part is that there are no visitors. So the hospital is very quiet. It's strange to see the lobby empty, the hallways empty, and nobody in the patient rooms other than staff. And it's quite difficult. I mean, the patients don't mind because they're not awake for the most part. They're anesthetized through their sickest period when they're on the ventilator. And the families have to make tough decisions when they're not there. Sometimes a tough decision when it's time to intubate the patient, or if the patient's not doing well and they're pretty terminal, then they have to make the decision to extubate the patient terminally, which is very tough. And we have visitors that are allowed during that time if they want to come in, and we have chaplains there as well. Some have died, and we're not used to that many people dying. We haven't had an overwhelming number, but more than what we're used to. My battle verse has been for many years in Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. And also something has driven me. That Pastor Steve said several years ago during one of his sermons. He quoted his father-in-law, and this is a quote of a quote. If heaven is a place of rest, then it would be quite appropriate to arrive there quite exhausted. Thank you very much. Thank you again for your prayers, and I miss you, and I hope to be there soon.